All right, I'm gonna take my mask off here so I can speak. I'm 6 feet away from everyone.
Hey everybody, welcome to Medicine Deconstructed. I'm your host, Dr. Jay Rutland. We're filming some episodes today, and we started talking and had a little discussion, and we thought to ourselves, why don't we talk about film production and COVID? There's lots of questions out there. We put the question out there on the internet, and we received lots more inquiries. So I'm gonna take my mask off. We're all 6 feet apart, at least, if not more than that. We're gonna get to discuss it.
Yeah, that's right.
I work for a company called Private Health at privatehealth.com. And what we do is we help production companies organize testing and create protocols that allow a bubble, so to speak, to exist. What you want to do when you go out and you're going to shoot a feature film or a television program is you want to create protocols that are similar to the NBA's bubble right now that's going on in Orlando.
Explain what a real secure bubble means and what that is.
When I say bubble, when I use the term bubble or creating a bubble, what I mean is you're almost creating this invisible layer around a group of people. In other words, you know where they've been, you know where they're going, you know who they're in contact with, because then it's easy to contact, trace. So that's what we're trying to create when you are a production crew and Private Health is managing your COVID-19 protocol, is that we're trying to create this almost invisible bubble in which we know who you're around. So you might be eating dinner with the same people, or you might be around the same people. Recently, one of the NBA players, Dwight Howard, got in trouble today because he wasn't wearing a mask. And there's a COVID hotline there, and people were telling him he wasn't wearing a mask. Again, we want to maximally de-risk you within that bubble. We want to know what you're doing and who you're with. You can say it's an invasion of privacy or whatever you want to say, but right now, when you're working, when you're going out on that crew and there's a lot of you, we got to keep track because we do not want this to spread anymore. And the way to do that is with testing. Now, SAG requires you to have testing every 3 days. And so you're gonna get tested every 3 days. And with my company, we have results back within 24 hours, anywhere from 16 to 36 hours. Most of the time it's been 24 hours. So we know who's positive and who's negative. And if you're positive, we've created protocols to isolate and quarantine yourself.
A lot of the questions we got are related to testing. What's the best test? What's the most accurate test?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that there are many different brands of tests, but out there right now, there are two different types of testing which you hear about commonly. The first test is that nasal swab or that mouth swab. What is that swab actually doing? Here is what it's doing. What the test is called a PCR, polymerase chain reaction test. And what it's looking for, as we've discussed before, SARS-CoV-2, right, is a type of coronavirus. It's an RNA virus, meaning that is the genetic material within its cell nucleus, is RNA, ribonucleic acid. And so what that PCR test is doing is it's looking for pieces of ribonucleic acid, and then it amplifies those pieces. And if it amplifies enough, your test is positive. So that's what a PCR test actually is. The reason it takes so long to get the tests back most times is because there's lots of other tests that need to be run, right? So when I was working in a lab, a PCR might take 3 hours or 4 hours. Now we run them much quicker, maybe over the course of an hour or two. But you have to get the testing there. The testing kit has to get there to run that PCR. Now, the second type of test you guys have heard about is called the antibody test. So what the antibody test is it tests for our immune system manufacturing proteins that bind to the spike protein, which is the major protein that the virus uses to enter our epithelial cells, or our cells in the lung, our cells in the vasculature, and our cells in the intestine. So those are the two differences between the types of tests. But moving forward, a couple of days ago, MIT partnered with 3M on a new rapid test that can give you a result within 10 minutes. Now, the MIT lab that has created this test has other tests for malaria, tuberculosis. What this test actually does is it tests for different proteins on the virus. So you don't have to look for the genetic material or amplify that genetic material. You can create a molecule that binds to the spike protein, that binds to an envelope protein, or any other type of protein that's on the virus. And so that test is currently in development and it has been ramped up, so to speak. So hopefully we get that test on the market and you get your results within 10 minutes.
Explain, when they do the test, it's going to the lab. Talk about the machines that do the testing and everything like that. And how is it that you guys can get them back in a day where someone else might be taking 7 days?
So it's all about the availability of the machines that perform the PCR. And so, again, what causes the backup 5 to 7 days, it's not that the test is taking that long to run. It's that they have so many other tests in front of it. And so what you have to do is you have to find a machine that's readily available for you to use, so that way you get the test back the quickest. Running the test doesn't take all that long. It's just that there are so many other tests to run, and so what you're running into is a numbers issue. You've got so many people running through this same lab that this machine is just overwhelmed with work to do.
There's mixed regulations everywhere. Give me some ideas of things that people, regardless of the regulations out there, what should people be doing?
I'm going to give you an example. So I am a pulmonary critical care physician, right? I work in a hospital. And I'll be the first to tell you that before December of 2019, I ran around the hospital maskless. If somebody needed a life saved, I wouldn't wear gloves sometimes. I'd get my hands in there, save somebody's life, be proud of myself, and then move on to the next patient, right? That's what I did. That's what we did. That's what the healthcare industry did. When COVID-19 showed up, our whole protocol had to change. We noticed that people who did not have personal protective equipment, people who did not wear masks, people who did not wash their hands, those are the people that are getting really sick, and those are the people who were dying. There's a long list of Italian physicians and United States physicians that have died. Worldwide, there's a list of physicians that have died because of lack of personal protective equipment. The industry, the film industry, has to change. What do I mean by that? All the equipment needs to be sanitized daily. It has to be sanitized daily. If you're going to use equipment several days in a row and you're going to have 150 different hands on equipment several days in a row, not only do the people who are using the equipment have to wash their hands and sanitize hourly, minutely, but you also have to have the equipment at least sanitized throughout the day or at least at night. Shouldn't be renting equipment that hasn't been sanitized. And production crews that are renting equipment or going to places to rent equipment, I would make sure that that equipment is sanitized. I think that what we've noticed in the literature is that, the virus can survive on metal for up to 72 hours. What does that mean as far as infectiousness? No one really knows. But its survival on metal for up to 72 hours does get me to raise my eyebrows a little bit. So again, what's the common denominator here? What's touching all this equipment? Your hands. So whether you're wearing gloves all day or whether you're using your hands all day, you just got to remember that your hands must be clean. Wearing gloves all day is essentially the same thing as having a dirty hand if you keep the same gloves on all day long. That glove has just become your hand. So as you're touching everything, doesn't matter. If you touch everything and touch your face, touch your body, you're doing the same thing your hand does. So I always recommend just don't wear gloves. That way you wash your hands. So it's important to remember that. Wash your hands, hand sanitizer. People need to have a shower around. They got to be able to shower at least once a day, if not twice a day. And whenever you're around equipment that you're unsure of, I would wash your hands all day long, no questions asked.
A lot of crew members like me, I wear gloves. Sometimes I have gloves, sometimes I don't have gloves on. I go back and forth between like some things I'll touch with my hands, and then other things like if I pick up an apple box, I'm gonna put gloves on because I don't want to get splintered or
right.
Something. Certain gear, you're always gonna put gloves on to handle, and then it's maybe it's on the gloves. Maybe it's can you sanitize gloves?
Just wash them.
During the set, it's not like I can really wash them, Just with those things, I have a few of those in the truck I use too.
Yeah.
Talk about your protocols that you use at your company and the company you work with.
Yeah. We at Private Health have developed very, very nice and well-organized protocols in which we have compliance officers on site with production companies running our COVID-19 protocol and maximally de-risking people, cast, and crew members. Now, What we do is we test people every few days, okay? And then if somebody is positive, we come up with quarantine times, how long they're going to be quarantined based on their subsequent tests, right? If they're negative, if they continue to be positive, and this sort of thing. Patients or crew members and cast members within a certain production company have direct access to me. They can call me, they can text me, they can ask me what medicines they should be taking on an outpatient basis, and I can give them advice, and I give my company advice on whether or not somebody may need to go to the hospital if they do contract SARS-CoV-2. We will shut down production if need be. Hopefully we don't have to do that. We also provide contact tracing. Where were you? Who were you with? Who were you in a room with? And who else possibly has the virus? And unfortunately, at times, you have to pull people from work and you have to tell people that they can't do certain things for a certain amount of time. Is it a headache? Yes. Does it cost money? Probably, because of production costs. But it's the safest thing to do, and it's safest for your cast and crew members, because the last thing you want is you do not want your film or your production responsible for an enormous outbreak. Because as you guys all know, your cast and crew can be 30 to 1,000 people on set or around set and getting ready for a big movie.
From what you've learned through the company you work with, what should be the approximate budget?
Yeah, from what I've learned through my company, it tends to be about 5% of the film or television budget should be responsible for the COVID-19 protocols and the testing. And again, this is necessary. This isn't something you should try to skip around. This isn't something you should try to go cheap on. This is something that is essential, right? We live in this COVID-19 world. The world has changed. Protocols are changing. We're not going to get back to a normal life as we saw 6 months ago. I'm not going to get back to my normal hospital life. I'm always going to have to be worried about SARS-CoV-2 and protect myself via masking and washing my hands and wearing face shields and things that I wasn't used to wearing when I was practicing a couple of years ago. So the film industry is going to change as well. And again, you just want to make certain that you're protecting your cast and crew members. If you're a freelancer or you're not part of the union and you get to make your own decisions and do your own thing, just protect yourself, please. Get that eyewear, get that mask, that KN95, get that hand sanitizer, wash your hands, and protect yourself as much as you can, especially if you have hypertension, diabetes, or if you're obese. Those are the people that have the biggest risk of developing severe COVID-19.
Should we be checking blood oxygen levels as well as temperature each morning on set? Is that a more reliable indicator of COVID symptoms?
So that's a good question. So again, SARS coronavirus can attack the lung and infects the type 2 pneumocyte of the lung, which is the supporting cell of the lung, gives the lung its nutrition and such. And at times, if the infection is prevalent within your lung, it can cause a significant amount of inflammation within the lung that leads to you becoming what's called hypoxic, meaning your oxygen level is going to go down. Now, checking oxygen levels or getting a oximeter, so to speak, putting it on your finger, it doesn't really increase the sensitivity of someone having coronavirus or being tested positive for coronavirus. Having one on set can help if somebody's having symptoms. If they say they're short of breath, you might realize how short of breath they are. And again, you may have a compliance officer that's a PA or a nurse or even a physician that's on set and can be able to evaluate that patient. But no, I wouldn't necessarily think that it's absolutely necessary to have on set, but it does come in handy if somebody does get sick.
We have one here.
We do have one here. There's one right on the table.
No problem. Okay, what do you think about the safety of atmospheric smoke with COVID, especially propylene glycol fog?
So propylene glycol is also found in your vaping cartridges. It's one of the molecules that you inhale, and it is a carcinogen, so it can cause cancer if you inhale it enough. Propylene glycol may be a risk factor, but it hasn't been extensively studied. But when you look at the vaping and COVID-19 literature, so let's assume, vaping cartridges do have propylene glycol. When you look at the vaping and the COVID-19 literature, if you vape, COVID-19 can be significantly worse.
So a big thing we have in the film industry is obviously really poor ventilation, especially in interior things. We turn off air conditioning units. Now, some people say air conditioning spreads it.
So Another question that we received is in regards to ventilation and turning on fans. I do think you need circulating air. All right, we all know that when you're outside in the circulating air, you're less likely to get coronavirus. When you're inside, we turn off the circulating air, that becomes an issue. So I would turn on fans, or I would have some sort of machine that sucks in air and kind of cleans it up. I have 2 of those in my house, one downstairs, one upstairs, just in case. I'm not saying that it's a cure and it's going to get rid of coronavirus. I'm just saying having that circulating air is important.
Big concern on all film productions, bathrooms.
Yeah.
What is the chance of shed viral particles dispersing in bathrooms from aerosol when flushing a toilet?
The virus has been known to shed in your stool, and it can be up to 30 days post-infection or something like that. People will still shed virus. We don't know if that means that they're contagious or not. Is it possible for you to pick up the virus in the bathroom? I'm sure it is, but again, you're going to be doing the same thing. You're going to be washing your hands. You're going to be protecting yourself in public places. The bathroom is the most public place. So you're going to have to do those things to reduce your risk. So that's all I can say to that.
A friend of mine asked Amber, she says, is the film industry, by all this extra testing and everything like that, are we taking away PPE and tests away from hospitals or people that might be sick and actually need it? So for example, is the film industry eating into that backlog that maybe is affecting an actual sick person versus, just another person who needs to know they're negative?
It's another great question. Most hospitals, big healthcare systems have their own machines. So the film industry is not eating into their testing capability. As far as personal protective equipment or PPE, no, it doesn't seem to be that we're taking from Peter, right, and giving to Paul. It's just that they have PPE, they require PPE, they purchase their PPE, and we do the same. So I don't feel like the film industry is taking away from my healthcare industry, and the hospitals in which I reside, in which I work, we have enough PPE and we're able to get enough PPE at this time.
What are some good products? Like I have a friend here that was talking about this BioProtect spray, which is an antimicrobial spray that's supposed to disinfect kills things on contact for 90 days. And then also this other thing, it's like a UV disinfectant sanitizing gun.
Yeah, so typically speaking, there are sanitation devices, sanitation wipes that you want to use. Whichever product you select is going to work well. It just has to be able to break up virus, break up bacteria, and you wipe it down. And it doesn't matter what brand it is, just so long as you use something to clean it. In fact, the friction of moving up and down with water breaks up some of those things as well. I wipe down my cell phone with hospital sanitation wipes here that we have that are germicidal. They kill fungus, bacteria, viruses, tuberculosis as well. And again, you just want to clean all the equipment that you use.
Right. So something as simple as maybe a low, bleach water or even like a Lysol spray or something like that on a paper towel could be just as effective. Sometimes people are probably marketing some really expensive stuff out there, and there might be some cheap solutions.
There are cheap solutions, exactly.
Depending on the longevity of your production. And a lot of people that work, freelance or day players or, going from production to production, they're wanting to know what are the best masks to get, because, a lot of people feel like they're just walking into a war zone where there's just chaos going on.
So when you look in the literature in regards to masking, first of all, masking works. I don't want to hear anything else. I don't want to hear anything else about it doesn't work, it makes you hypoxic, blah, blah. False. Masking works. When you look in the literature, it protects you. It reduces your risk of obtaining SARS-CoV-2. This is a surgical mask. All right, it's a basic surgical mask. The pores here, people will say, oh, well, the virus can fit between the pores. It's not that, it's not that thin. The pores are too wide and such. Yeah, that's true, except that viruses travel in droplets, and droplets can be of varying different sizes and shapes, okay? So the droplet's not gonna get through this. Now, it has been proven, though, that an N95 is a better mask than just a surgical mask, and it is. Because the pores are probably a little bit smaller and it protects you a little bit more. And you can tell because when I put the N95 on, my glasses don't fog. When I put the surgical mask on, my glasses fog, meaning that air is getting in between there and moisturizing my lenses. So this is more protected. So if I was a freelance person, if I was a gaffer, if I was a director, if I was a AD, production assistant, I would get KN95s or N95s, and I would always have them. The other thing that even added on top of a mask is eye protection. So if you wear glasses or contacts, you might want to wear your glasses more than you wear your contacts. Or you might want to get eye protection, goggles, or a face shield of some kind that you can put on as glasses to protect yourself. Because again, no one wants to shut the economy down completely. And I understand that you have to work. I have to work too. So you just want to protect yourself as much as you can. Yes, it's annoying. Yes, you're not going to like it. Yes, you're going to have itches and scratches and want to scratch your face because you have all this equipment on. But you're going to get used to it.
Okay, so, some people are asking some general questions about the long-term effects of this. And I think it's mostly kind of along the same lines of what we're talking about here is risk mitigation. What is the seriousness of this illness? Some people say, oh, it's just the flu, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
And, for a lot of people working in film production, we're talking about young, healthy people that may not have the worst case of it. But what's the suggestion about long-term effects? When people decide, hey, I'm on a set, I don't feel safe, no one's listening to protocol. There's a guy coughing on the food over there and I don't want to be near this place.
As somebody who takes care of coronavirus on an inpatient and an outpatient basis, what do I see? So I've got nurses that are my age, 38, 39 years old, that develop coronavirus, and then post-coronavirus, they develop like a post-COVID-19 syndrome where they're fatigued and they're short of breath for a long period of time, and it takes them a while to recover. I might get a CAT scan or a chest x-ray, and I won't find anything objective, but for some strange reason, they have this fatigue, and they recover slowly over time, but it does take a while. In terms of the long-term consequences of the illness, no one knows. Acutely, it can be death, right? Long-term wise, yeah, you can have fatigue. You can develop, if you get acutely ill and you develop respiratory failure and need a ventilator, or you need to be on a machine that breathes for you, maybe to get you off the machine, we have to cut a hole in your neck to put you on, to give you a tracheostomy. That can be a long-term consequence. You might be in a nursing home of some sort for a very long period of time, despite your age. Again, there are significant consequences of the illness. I'm not trying to scare anybody. 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. But it doesn't mean that the person that you go home to is.
But can you talk a little bit about some tactics to make, to help, maybe during a safety meeting, an AD safety meeting, that can help enforce the seriousness of this and make sure that people are adhering? Because I hear a lot of people complaining that, yeah, we have all these rules, but nobody's following them.
I think it's about teamwork, and I think it's about education. One of the advantages of having physicians involved in this protocol, especially at my company, Private Health, is having town halls. So there have been innumerable instances where I have sat down on a Zoom meeting with 80 cast and crew members in which I'm speaking about SARS coronavirus type 2, and I'm giving them examples of the virus, of people infected with the virus, the symptoms of the virus, the consequences of the virus, because it shows people that this is real. It's not a hoax, it's a real infection. That's one. Two is also being in that Zoom meeting, it allows people, civilians, to ask their questions. They can ask what they should be doing. They can ask what they need to stay away from. They can ask what kinds of things have you seen. They can ask, has anybody been infected on set that you've been on? And so that's what's important, is people need to be aware of what's going on. People need to be aware that they could possibly get infected.
How do you really lay it out in your town halls and to people that this is really important, really, really important, and how, to help other people, maybe they can use some of these terms or words to get people online, on board with following the law?
I think the easiest way to do it is to show pictures of somebody sick with SARS-CoV-2. They have to see it. For some reason, people have to see it or experience it, or it has happened to a family member for them to really listen and figure out what's going on. I mean, recently in Hollywood, you had that Broadway actor that passed away, developed significant amount of blood clots, significant amount of clot burden that led to a loss of a limb, loss of a leg, led to loss of his lung function and eventually the loss of his life because of contracting SARS-CoV-2. And I'm not saying it was any production company's fault or anybody's fault. I'm just saying that that is the most severe consequence. Now, in the United States, people don't comply. In other countries, people do comply. And it's clearly a big difference. When you look at New York and Italy, we said New York was the epicenter at first. That's where SARS-CoV-2 started. Then Italy started to spike, and Italy had more cases. And everybody was afraid that the United States was going to be the new Italy. Well, Italy flattened out at about 260,000 cases. The United States is probably at like 4 million now, right? What's the difference? If you go look in Italy, they kept their restaurants open and their bars open, but people stayed inside. People wore masks. People washed their hands. There's nobody over in Italy saying that coronavirus is a sham. There's nobody over in Italy saying that we think that coronavirus is caused by 5G. They're complying with the rules that their government instituted. And in the United States, we're not. And I'm not here to judge anybody, but I'm just here to say that coronavirus is real. Personal protective equipment wins. It's been proven. And all you gotta do is wash your hands and wear your PPE. That's all we're asking you to do. I'm not asking you to walk on water. Just don't get wet. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that the information provided today was extremely helpful. I hope it helped your production company. I hope it helped you. I hope it helped your family. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I just want people to be informed. And again, I'm not asking you to walk on water. Just don't get wet.